Siyabonga Star. Good evening, Zimbabwe. You are listening to Studio 7 from the Voice of America on Tuesday, April 28th, 2015. And this is The Connection on Live Talk. I'm Tungameli Nkomo.
And I'm Tatenda Gumbo.
Tonight, we are discussing the Southern African Development Community Extraordinary Summit on Regional Industrialization and its impact on the youth.
So let's get connected on Twitter and Facebook using the hashtag #TheConnection. Our Facebook page is VOA Studio 7 and our Twitter handle is @Studio7VOA. We can also get things going on our WhatsApp. That number is 001-202-465-0318.
You want to get live on air, live on Studio 7, please call us at 001-202-619-2077. The number again, 001-202-619-2077, and we will call you back.
And of course, we're also streaming live on the internet. You can find us at voazimbabwe.com, voashona.com, and also on voandebele.com.
Again, this is your number one youth forum, The Connection, coming to you live from the Voice of America in Washington.
And Tunga, as you mentioned earlier, the 5-day summit under the theme Regional Strategy and Roadmap for Industrialization kicked off earlier this week to outline the regional strategy and roadmap for industrialization, a move that some say can assist in boosting the regional economies.
And as they hunker down tomorrow, Tatenda, African leaders will be looking at tackling the issue of youth unemployment. And tonight, we are asking, as young people, what is it that you want these SADC leaders to do to tackle this very, very important issue of youth employment or youth unemployment, which is a pervasive issue across the African continent.
Yes, indeed, Ntunga. And of course, as usual, our social media has been buzzing from young people in Zimbabwe and across the region, talking about their issue with unemployment and job creation, hoping that things can go better for them and they can find themselves working.
Indeed, tatenda lichona njani emakhaya ikudibana lamhlanje kuhlelo lwabasakhulayo uhlelo The Connection khonapha ku Studio 7 Live Talk. Lamhlanje ke lizakhumbula njengo kutsho kwethu ngaphambilini kuma shows ethu kuqala izolo besikhuluma ngokuthi abakhokheli beSADC bayahlangana eHarare, ikakhulu ama-ministers yiwo aqale ukuhlangana kusasa ngolwesithathu kulapho ukuqala khona ukuhlangana abakhokheli bamazwe SADC lapho abazakhuluma khona nge-issue ye-industrialization, ukusungula imisebenzi, ukuvuselela amakampani emazweni asezansi yezwekazi le-Afrika. Ngakho umbuzo omkhulu esilawo kini basakhulayo namhlanje ngokuthi kuyini elifuna kwenziwe ngabakhokheli beSADC lapha ekuhlanganeni kwabo kusasa ukulungisisa udaba lokusilela kwemisebenzi ikakhulu kini abasakhulayo nyaya yati kukurukura nezvayo nasi Tatenda pano apa pa Chirongwa The Connection inyaya yekuti vatungamiri veSADC vari kusangana kuHarare kutanga mangwana ma-heads of state vachikurukura nenyaya ye-industrialization. Saka mvunzo watiri kutarisa nasi zvikuru sei kune vechidiki varidzi vechirongwa ndeyekuti zvii zvavanoda kuona zvichiitwa nevatungamiri veSADC ava kugadzirisa dambudziko rekushayikwa kwemabasa zvikuru sei kune vechidiki.
Tunga, I think, and we have some of our guests on the line, I assume.
Yeah, sure. We have our first guest, Devson Mzingwa, the founder of Entrepreneurship Africa. .com, and some disclosure is in order. Devson Mzingwa is he is laughing. Devson Mzingwa is a good friend of mine.
Okay.
We went to college together. Very intelligent guy, very ambitious, and we are glad to have him on the show tonight. We also have economic commentator Masimba Kuchera, but our producer tells us we just lost Masimba, but we are making efforts to get him back on the show. Miss T, the honor is yours. Get things rolling with Mr. Mzingwa.
Mr. Mzingwa, thank you very much for joining us this evening on The Connection. And I'll say any friend of Ntunga is a friend of mine. So
thank you.
Thank you so much. Just to chime in, what's your view as we look at the SADC extraordinary meeting focusing on the issue of industries within the region? Can we start off by getting your take on what will be a full week for the regional leaders?
I think my focus or my reaction is mixed. Firstly, I'm happy because the SADC leaders are now talking on what people have been talking for long, that is integration of SADC as an organ. Not just as an organ, but countries in SADC, they need to come together and do something that shows integration. What has been lacking in the region or through this block of SADC in terms of economic development is the issues of lack of integration. It was just SADC as an organ by name. They are united on political decisions, but on economic decisions, they were not integrated. But now we are happy that these heads of state appointed their ministers of trade to look on issues of industrialization through strategic planning and also integration. So I'm really happy that they are talking of integration, because what we need most now as SADC is integration to make sure that all issues that pertain the economics of SADC are the same, from transportation to power relations, that is electricity, not power as in politics. They are all integrated, and this is the only way that SADC can really move up, like its sister organizations such as the EAC and COMESA. On the other side, I'm really happy that this is happening and looking forward that the walk, the talk, and all these documents that are coming up with through the ministers of trade in SADC won't be just documents, but they walk the talk and ensure that there is industrialization, which is the only way that the world is heading to. All countries in the world need to industrialize in order to develop economically.
Thank you. Devson, please do stay on the line. We now have economic economist, Mr. Masimba Kuchera. Mr. Kuchera, good evening.
Good evening, and good evening to the listeners as well.
Yes, the heads of state from the SADC region are meeting tomorrow in Harare, Mr. Kuchera, and they are talking industrialization. But, as you know, and as our listeners would know by now, we are 100% biased towards the youth. And the question that we have tonight is what exactly should these leaders do to address the issue of youth unemployment across SADC?
Yeah, I think, you see, they are looking up to 2063. And I think what they should do is to probably have a bit of a crystal ball and look into the future and see what kind of jobs young people will attract or will need up to 2063. But what is also important is to look at now and look at how are they going to I heard the other guests speaking of integration. How are they going to ensure that companies that exist right now are going to be able to take in young people into employment? And also how they are going to support young people through their startups and so on, so that they are also employed that way. Half the time we have a problem where young people are sometimes very difficult to employ because of their mobility, but also young people have problems in trying to start up their own companies because they don't have capital to do so. So the heads of state should really look at supporting young people at the moment so that they also come together and are employed, but also ensure that the companies that are existing now also not necessarily reserve jobs for young people, but are encouraged to employ a younger workforce.
Thank you, Masimba there. I'll come back to you, Davison. Looking at this issue, as you spoke about earlier, of integrating the region, SADC region, in terms of the economic structure, is that really feasible, looking at what is happening maybe in South Africa, maybe in Zimbabwe, and even other areas, in terms of the high level of unemployment among those youth who normally populate the highest in many of these countries? Hello, David. Go ahead.
That should be the basis or starting point on coming up with a feasible structure or a feasible plan on how to uplift the economies in Southern Africa. What we need now is to ensure that SADC as a body organizes a central hub that ensures that youth unemployment is solved. And from the statistics that we have seen, 65% of the population in Africa, which includes also Southern Africa, is youthful. These are young people. So you realize that most of the active people are young people. And youth unemployment is so high in Africa. That's why at the moment there's no development. Many young people are lying idle after their own education. And at the moment, we need SADC to come up with a central hub. We need SADC to come up with a central structure that we have funding to ensure that young people with great ideas in the digital economy, also in the industrialization, are supported by a central funding that will help these young people to integrate on basis as human beings. Not at the moment, as you said, in South Africa, there is high unemployment, and this has spared hatred among Africans through xenophobia. But if they come up with a system like that, where young people know each other, they appreciate each other, and they work from a central hub of SADC, we have something great. This is supported by a fund from SADC.
Vakuchera kubuda nema blueprints is one issue, but implementation is quite a different issue altogether. Kana tichitarisa msangano uyu wemangwana, take for instance nyika yakaita seZimbabwe, sei pane ma blueprints akajeka chabuda pamsangano uyu. Implementation yacho muri kuona ichifambiswa sei, zvikuru sei tichitarisa Zimbabwe zvino izvi ine chirongwa chayo cheZimaset. Whether you agree with it or not is a different matter, but that program is not being implemented nedambudziko rekuti hapana mari. Panyaya ye-implementation apa ichafamba sei, inozofamba sei tichitarisa nyaya yemari?
Yeah, look. Pane reports zakati one day, not only in terms of implementation, but also in terms of you see, when you talk about industrialization in SADC, SADC is not one country. There are various countries are at differing stages of development, economically, politically, and socially. So you'll find kuti nyika dzakawanda ma-industry adzo anenge ari kutodzira. Only South Africa seems to be industrializing at a rate very high. So what it may mean is that South Africa kana yakutarisa maissues industrialization, they will then have to feed some of their gains to other nations, which may be very difficult. And also then coming with a 50-year or 48-year blueprint is very difficult to put it into mass stages to follow. I think that implementation at that level, you will find that it's going to be difficult because you have leaders focusing on industrialization this time. A new set of leaders were saying that leaders are industrialization, let's focus on something else. So there's not even guarantee when it starts it's going to finish. But the challenge in if all the countries agree, let's do this, there is no central funding that is going to allow that to happen. And because of that problem, akunamari from a central place for it to happen, we are going to have a situation where, unfortunately, countries like Zimbabwe will simply agree, but it will take more time to implement. Let me just give you a small example. We've been talking about digitalization right now, moving from analog in terms of my televisions to digital. The International Telecommunications Union is saying that by June, analog will be difficult to access, and we now need digital. But Zimbabwe is very far from ensuring that my transmitters are digital. And they agreed that by 2015, so, look, agreeing to a lot of these things, Zimbabwe is very good at that. Our leadership is very good at going and agreeing and shaking hands, but in terms of implementation, coming back home, it's a serious problem altogether.
Yebo siyabonga kushera ungayikatshana uyakhuluma lapha ukushera Datenda ukhuluma ngokuthi yebo kungavunyelwana belobelane phansi isivumelwano sokuthi njenge region kumele sihambe ngalolu nyawo kodwa nxa sokubuya ku implementation ekuthini inhlelo zabo bazilandele basifake kugiya zikhona ukusebenza kuzahlupha ngoba amanye amazwe afana leZimbabwe imali kayikho ngitshilo ngaphambilini ukubana lukhona uhlelo lwabo olwe-ZANU-PF lolwe Zimaset kodwa kaluyindawo ngoba uhulumende kala imali implementation iyehlula khona ngoluka uhulumende we-ZANU-PF befuna ukutsho njalo Tatenda silomunye njalo one of our guests osecingweni.
I think we also have on the line Tawanda Chikosi, who is the CEO of Chikosi Technology, joining us now. Tawanda, thanks so much for joining us on The Connection.
Thank you for having me on the show again. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Tawanda. Just as you join us, tikutara na issue ya implementation, looking specifically at Zim Asset and some other blueprints that even we've seen within the region. What's your take on that issue? There's always the question of money when it comes to implementation. How do you see it?
It depends on how you want to look at it. If you want to look at it from a regional perspective, or you would like to look at it from a country perspective in Zimbabwe. If we look at it from a regional perspective, I'd like to believe that the summit that is taking place on industrialization is something that is a positive step towards progress. My thinking is that most of the summits that have been held of this nature have not been focusing on industrialization, but it has been more political discourse and dialogue. But this one has specifically been set, for issues to do with the economy and the industrialization within the SADC region. So the idea that the leadership of all these various countries within the bloc are now thinking and trying to synchronize their thinking towards this thing is a positive step. I would like to believe that Rome was not built in one day, but the first step towards building Rome is an important aspect. Implementation at that level will always vary. There are times when we will fail, but we will fail as we are making progress. As we do reviews, we also see why we have failed and make adjustments as we go. So if we are to give ourselves a 50-year plan, I'd like to believe it's something that can allow us to review, to fail, to improve, and to make giant leaps as we progress. Now, coming back home to Zimbabwe as a country, Yes, I would like to agree with the previous commentator or speaker who indicated some examples that he has given, for instance, the digitalization of our television transmission system as an example where there has been an agreement to a strategic move, but implementation hasn't come to fruition as expected within the local system. It's something that we're still grappling with as a country to, get to a point where we are able to implement successfully. But I think it's something that is work in progress.
Thank you.
Yebo, siyabonga Tawanda. Lingayikachana majaha akithi tatenda silama comments esiwathunyelwe ngabalaleli bethu nge-WhatsApp, and would like to play those comments. We'll be back shortly.
Apana mabasa anombokwanisa kuuya bhuzi sadhaki yacho mukuru wacho munyori mukuru wacho esadhaki ndiye mugabe wacho, saka hazvinazo zvinomboshanda. Vangaite zvavangaite sanction kana toripa hapana zvarinomboita, ndiye mugabe wacho ndiye akatotisungira place. Saka vechidiki vacho hapana mukana watinotomboita kuti titombopinda ipapa, ende handina kumboona kana chavanga vachirovera vanhu. Dai vasiya vanhu vachiratidzira zviripo pachena, ndo zvitori pachena izvozvo zviri kuitika izvozvo. Ungafanira kutoratidzira sadhaki yacho ione zviri kuitika, kuti iye mugabe wacho ndiye asadiwe nevanhu, ende hatichatomudi zveidiwa, toda hurumende nyowani. Kuti zviri kuitika zvacho hurumende yacho saro iripo yachiri kuti dzinyirira zvisingaiti. Dai yanga iri hurumende nyowani zvisine mabasa, saka ngapachinjwe, toda kuti zvichinjwe izvi zvavari kutaura zvina kana mature.
Sanibonani, ngikhuluma noNcube. Ngicela nami ukudlulisa umbono wami mayelana summit le SADC meeting ezobe khona ngale ngase eHarare. Ngombono wami mina bengibona kungcono ukuthi abohulumende bezama ukuhlanganisa amakhanda, like abohulumende base-Africa, like umsholozi, bazama ukuthi kube nendlela yokuthi khona abantu abafana nabo o-President Mugabe ba-step down ukuze abantu labo bakwazi ukubuyela emazweni akubo, kube ne-democracy e-Africa. Bonke ontando kayiphikiswa bengathi ba-step down. Sicela ukuthi lokhu likudlulise, likwazi ukudlulisa izinto ezifana nalezo, ngoba khona manje sibona nangapha e-South Africa abantu bayaboshwa, kufanele baphindele emazweni akibo, ekubeni babalekele udubo emazweni akibo nokuhlukunyezwa, amalungelo esintu ahlukunyezwa. Ma bengazama ukuthi kube ne-democracy e-Africa. Ngiyabonga. Bebacele labo abantu abafana nalabo kube nokurenewa izinto ezifana nama-constitution elizwe, abantu bebe nama-rights. Yabo. Ngiyabonga ukudlulisa umlayezo wami. Ningangifonela lami late kwazi ucontribute nabantu.
Maindastry iva vanogona kushanda zvakanaka vakagona kupinza nyaya dzematongerwo enyika mukati memaindastry, asi ndinoona zvangu ini nyaya dzematongerwo enyika dzichizopinda nokufamba kwenguva, ngekuti zanu munoiziva yagara iri mapamba. Asi chikurukuru chandinokurudzira munyika yedu yeZimbabwe, kudai vaedza kusunungura vana veZimbabwe vave vachishandira munyika dzavo.
Siyabonga, leyo yimbiko esithunyelwe ngabalaleli bethu. Mr. Mzingwa, before I come to you, let's put some perspective on this story. Let's look at Africa's two biggest economies. We'll start off with Nigeria. That's South Africa. That's Africa's largest economy after having overtaken South Africa last year. The number of unemployment among young people is staggering. That's 50% unemployment in Nigeria. Then we go to South Africa, which happens to be Africa's most advanced economy, which is about 3.4 or 3.4 to 3.5 million unemployed youth among a population of about 54 million people. Vamdzingwa, hurumende ze-Africa ziri kutaza papi pakubatsira vechidiki pakurwisana nedambudziko rekushaya mabasa.
Chokutanga panyika dzamataura dzinoti Nigeria neSouth Africa dzakangofana nedzimwe nyika dziri muAfrica pakuti upfumi hwadzo hwakazemberana panyaya yezvokuti hunobva pazvicherwa kana kuti zviwanikwa zvemunyika iyoyo. Tona kuNigeria kune nyaya dzeoil, kozoya kuSouth Africa kune zvinhu zvakaita segold nediamond neplatinum. Ende maindustry akaita seiwawo anopindwa nemakambani makuru ekunyika dzekumavirira anonziwa mamultinationals. Zvoreva kuti vanhu vemukati menyika idzodzo kunyanya vechidiki havakwanisi kunge vachipinda mumaindustry akaita seiwawo ekunge vachiwana zviwanikwa, nokuti panoda mari yakawandisa, pagoda zvemishina yakawandisa neruzivo rwakawandisa. Nyika dzeAfrica dzinokwanisa kungoziva izvo kuti vechidiki vanogona chii chavangavadzidzisa, masekta api kana kuti mapande api ezveupfumi avangakwanisa kunge vachipinda, vobva vasumudzira vechidiki mumapande iwawo ezveupfumi nekuvabatsira nekuvadzidzisa, nekuvapa vaya vanovatungamirira, nekuvapazve mari yekuti vatange, nekuvatsigira kusvika vasvika pakunge vakwanisa kunge vachizvimirira voga, kwete kungoti kuye makambani ekunze mamultinationals asvika achitora nekusumudzira upfumi hwavo, pazvinopera vobva vaenda vechidiki vaya vosara vasina mabasa, vosara vasina ruzivo, nyika yosara ichinda pasi, hondo dzoramba dzichiendera mberi nenyaya izvozvo.
Yebo, siyabonga Diva qhubeka ubambile jaha lakithi, silo Masimba kuchera njalo lo Tawanda Chikosi ecingweni lamhlanje sikhuluma ngomhlangano weSADC okhona kusasa, sikhangela ukuthi abatsha abasakhulayo bengaphathiswa njani ukuba nabathole imisebenzi. Tatenda, time for the headlines, right?
As usual, we'd like to run down what happened today during our news shows, so we can take it away.
Police and anti-Mugabe protesters clashed at the venue of the Southern African Development Community Extraordinary Summit in Harare today as regional leaders started trooping in for an industrialization summit starting tomorrow. About 100 National Railways of Zimbabwe employees in Mutare today staged a peaceful march over unpaid salaries dating back to June last year. And finally, the 56th edition of the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair has opened under the theme Stimulating Trade, Seizing Opportunities to Accelerate Growth.
Mapurisa nhasi arovana nevanhu vanga vachiratidzira muHarare panzvimbo iri kuitirwa musangano wechimbi-chimbi weSADC mangwana. Vashandi veNational Railways of Zimbabwe varatidzira nhasi pamuzinda wekambani iyi muguta reMutare vachinyunyuta nekusabhadharwa mari dzavo dzemihoro. Musika wezviratidzirwa weZimbabwe International Trade Fair wavhurwa nhasi muguta reBulawayo, vari kuronga vachiti vari kufadzwa nekuwanda kwevari kuratidza zvigadzirwa zvavo gore rino pachienzaniswa nevaivepo gore rapera.
Izisebenzi zenkampani kaloliwe eMutare ezedlula ikhulu namhla zitshengisele zikhonona ngeholo ezithi sezilesikhathi esifika phose umnyaka zingalitholi. Umbukiso wezamabhizimusi oweZimbabwe International Trade Fair uqale namhla koBulawayo. Kulababukisayo abanengi kulanyakenye ngokune ekhulwini 4%. Kube lokuxokozela eHarare namhla phakathi kwabantu akade betshengisela besola umbuso kaMongameli Robert Mugabe namapholisa lapho okwenzelwa khona umhlangano weSADC kusasa.
Thank you there to our reporters for giving us the headlines of today. And in Tunga, that brought us right to the top of the hour as we now transition over to our internet stream, where we are asking all our listeners to join us at voazimbabwe.com, voashona.com, or voandebele.com. I'm Tatenda Gumbo.
Lingayikachana mdzingwa kuchera lo Chikosi valaleli beradio emakhaya siyabonga sizadibaneni kusasa silomlaleli uGeorge osecingweni lawe ungayikachana olivalelisayo ngontungameli Nkomo asambeni phela ku internet njengokutsho kukatatenda voazimbabwe.com.
thanks again to those who are continuing to join us and those who have just tuned in. This is Live Talk, The Connection, and I'm Tatenda Gumbo, thanking you for joining us. And tonight, of course, we're discussing the SADC Extraordinary Summit on Industrialization and its impact on young people throughout the region and, of course, those in Zimbabwe.
Silo mlaleli wethu obe bambile singakathathi ikhefu.
Tine Mtereri Mtunga, tina Mkoma George wari kuBotswana. Mkoma George, welcome to The Connection. Makadi. Tiripo pinda yenyu muchirongwa.
Okay, indandoda kutaura kuti industrialization last time I said there's free movement of goods and people and services. But there's to do now to South Africa, why would I door to door kutsvaka foreigners? Saka free movement of people yachiri papi. Lokandana niya kuti oda kuita industrialization. Create mabasa iwo asina mari, because like let's say vanhu vane mari chaivo ma-politicians, because ma-politicians they can make more than mari yavanotambira pagore in a day. Let's take for example, president akabuda kunze anogona kuenda muhotera inodhurisisa, right? Uchaona kuti kana achibuda anoenda kana nedozen one. They are busy taking the money out that can create some industries in their own countries. Like it can also Mugabe kuti majains awo peye anogona kudya mari versus vanhu vari kutambura wekuti pamwe tikavhura kana company inongoita recycling yema-newspapers inogona kuvhurwa in all towns dzemuzimbabwe, but that money inenge ichidyiwa nemunhu one. Saka ninyaya wawe kuzotaura kuti vanoda kuvhura macompanies kana kuti maindustries vanoitora kupi mari yacho, nekunoti ivo vacho futi vanotoinvesta kunze outside the region. Ende nemapolicies avanenge vachiisa ivo mumacountries avo, hakuna vanhu vekunze vari interested kuuya kuinvesta munyika idzodzo. And poor state here mumaroads ari muZimbabwe kana muSADC region, but vamwe munana Botswana muri nani, vamwe South Africa, but muZimbabwe it's a pity. Kuti munhu akaunza motikari dzake within a year dzinofanira kunge dzatova grounded. Saka unoona kuti hakuna munhu ada kuita. Saka it's a far-fetched idea yavainayo, but nzvimbo yekuita tackle xenophobia vari kumhanya noita industrialization vanotangira nepapi. Ingori another talk show yekutiwo Mugabe ambohosta maleaders iwayo wenda achivapangisa Harare ende vachiwana dzimwe mari dzavanenge vachitora through kuti dziri kuenda kusummit. But otherwise it doesn't make any sense, because the free movement of goods and people ichikutotinetsa ma-ordinary people. Onzoenda kuSouth Africa unosenza upigwa 3 months, unenge ukatsvaga 20 days uchitsvaga basa, ubva waona basa after 10 days ozoona basa wasarwa nemazuva 50 unosenza chinyi, unozobva wadzoka wene chinyi. So it doesn't make sense.
Thank you, Nkoma George, we much appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
Kine vamwe vatereri vatumira matsamba avo neWhatsApp tatenda Silo Nqobizita uthi vadlala ngathi lava nothing will come out. Kulo Mluleki uthi we want jobs, only after jobs there is money. Everson uthi job creation. John uthi land distribution to all, including youths, in all forms of projects to ease unemployment in the country.
Just a small sample of some of the comments that we got today from our listeners over WhatsApp and, of course, Facebook, indeed. Let's bring in our guest. We'll bring in Tawanda Chikosi. If you can just react to what George was saying on the line. He's saying that some of these summits just become talking pieces and there's no real action on the ground. What's your take?
To some extent, I agree, but to a greater extent, I disagree. Of course, there are some summits that just turn out to be talk shows, but nothing really comes out of that. But on this particular one, on industrialization, I'd like to believe that it's not one of those. He made some comments in terms of xenophobia, which is maybe some people are terming as Afrophobia, to say if these summits could tackle this, or if the South African or the government of South Africa is letting go, on this issue and not solving it. I would like to say maybe this is not happening at the government level. We have seen the South African government strongly going against the movement that is taking place, and it's actually being perpetuated by a couple of individuals. Some arrests have always been made. We have seen the government of South Africa deploying the army in the affected areas. They're also taking dialogue between the relevant government levels to ascertain the ending of this problem. So I'd like to believe that is my comment at that stage. Presidential expenditure, as you are saying, in as far as the aid for president is concerned as they leave the country, I'd like to believe this is necessary when you take into consideration the security issues around the president of any particular country. May I also point out that other world leaders actually have more aid and more expenditures in as far as this is concerned, even greater than the ones that you find in Africa and in Zimbabwe in particular. In as far as where the capital is going to come from for this industrialization move that is being advocated for, I'd like to believe that what follows, capital follows an idea. If the region is well synchronized on industrialization, resource ownership, and value addition and beneficiation, if all the countries in SADC are pulling with one goal, I would like to believe we can have the necessary capital either organically or we can have the partners, because we are part of the emerging market, which is the last frontier. We always have people with excess capital in the West and in Europe who would like to invest it, but they have nowhere else to invest but here in Africa where the resources are. So I believe as Africa or as SADC as a region, we pull together towards this thing. We can have all the players that we want. We can have regional cooperation, just like with the Russians, the Chinese, even the West itself. But as we are pulling together with one drive and one goal as SADC. So this is what I would like to say would be my comments to Mr. George, who has just been on the line. I would like to believe this summit is going to be different because it's setting the tone. We haven't had this kind of discussion in Africa and in SADC to the level at which it's now being had now in as far as resource ownership is concerned, value addition and industrialization. So the kind of attention this subject is now getting is one which we think can set the tone for the next maybe 50 years for the region and for Africa.
Thank you.
Yebo siyabonga Chico sithathe omunye umlaleli lapha tatenda in fact uthumele incwadi ngoPanson Michaels uthi ngikhangelele ukuba baxoxisane ngodaba lokuvula amafekithali ukuze thina ontanga sithole imisebenzi sikwanise ukusebenza ngoba impilo iwomile elizweni lethu. Siyehluleka lokuthi senelise ukugcina abazali bethu abasifundisayo ngoba sidla imbuya ngothi elizweni. So udaba lokuvulwa kwamafekithali kufuze lukhangelwe kabanzi. Bachiye ukuxoxa ngodaba lwama-by-election ngoba kasidli khonoko thina. Ngiyabonga nguPatson Michael Zilowo. Sithathe usiye kuchera. Kuchera uDevson uyakhuluma lapha ngembuzile ukubana singakhangela eNigeria i-rate of unemployment among abasakhulayo 50%, eSouth Africa 3.4 to 5 million abasakhulayo labo ngabala msebenzi. It's a pity eZimbabwe ngoba akulama reliable statistics esingakhuluma ngawo. Kodwa umbuzo wami ngokuthi
nxa siyakwazi ukuthi abasakhulayo abala msebenzi eZimbabwe.
Yebo kusobala lokho. Umbuzo wami omkhulu nxa sikhangela iSouth Africa leNigeria ngokuthi kahle iminotho yamazwe omabili imkhonomi wabo uphezulu kakhulu kodwa kuyini okubangela ukubana abasakhulayo beswele imisebenzi kangaka?
Ungakhangelisisa uzawona ukuthi iminotho yase-South Africa yase-Nigeria iminotho yakudala bakhangela ukuthi bazaba labololiwe, bazaba lokunye abakwenzayo okunjenge-mining nxa sikhangele iNigeria ne-South Africa. Abakakhangele ukuthi lungisa umnotho wabo ukuthi ufinyelele okufunakala khathesi. Xa uzawukhangela uzabona ukuthi i-digital technology kumbe i-digital industry, ma-service industries yiwo azadriver ama-economies amaningi kakhulu. So ungakhangela iLondon vale banking system ethiwa i-banking system enzima kakhulu ukuthi bayahuga abanye abafuna ukuthi basebenzise ama-banks abo lani. So ngibona njengani ama-industries ethu khangele esingathi i-brick and mortar infrastructure ifuna ama-factory landa. Industrialization is also moving away from such a setup where you look at the brick and mortar industry. A lot of these guys, our young people, are looking into, say, telephone applications and other issues to do with the digital world. So you'll find that although we need these industries, the olden day industries like your mining, like your transport, we also need to move into the new industries. That's why you will find most young people getting employment, because those who are in mining, there's job mobility in most of these old sectors like mining, transport, and so on. So we are only going to wait for someone to retire or die so that they get a job. But in the new sort of industries, the service industries, call centers, you see ukuthi India, Katesi, call centers, and so on. Young people can take part in those jobs. So it means maybe when SADC heads of state speak tomorrow, they also need to look at what type of industries are they going to be encouraging, so that they also embrace what young people are now looking to and what the future is holding for most countries, even in the developed world.
Thank you, Masimba Kuchera, on that note. But tichitaura ipapo ntunga tinema experts edu are looking at this issue yema new industries, quote unquote. So I'll start off with you, Mdzingwa. Can you talk about your entrepreneurshipafrica.com and how you are leveling that changing industry, where we're looking at how technology, how service industry is really boosting and allowing young Africans in particular to join in on boosting the economies?
Thank you very much for that. So what entrepreneurshipafrica.com does is a stimulation of what has just been referred to by Masimba Kuchera. It's mostly about stimulating what has been lacking in Africa at the moment, which is the desire for young people to enter into entrepreneurship. Most of the young people know our culture in Africa, as we go to college or as we go to schools, we're encouraged to learn. After learning, have high grades. After that, and find work. So what we're trying to do is to stimulate the young people across Africa that you can't be just a worker. You can be an entrepreneur. You can start your own thing. So we are telling them positive stories. We are telling them successful stories. And most importantly, stories of failure, because these are stories that can work as a reference point to what made this person fail. What can I do not to fail? So that's what we are doing, encouraging young people, as they have said now, that the digital economy is growing exponentially across the world. And Africans, as we have seen and covered also on Entrepreneurship Africa, is that a lot of young people are geniuses in terms of the digital economy and all the technology sector. So we're really impressed in what we are doing, and also encouraging young people and networking them, which is what we're doing, connecting them to other people across Africa so that they work together. And this is mostly important because this is the global world. People should be in touch with someone who is in Tanzania, with someone who is in Ghana. So we've done that a lot, connecting people who are working in the same sector or complementary sectors so that they can work together and lift it up high. And young people are really eager to pursue in this sector.
Okay, thank you, Diva Timbo Tora Tawanda. Tawanda, let's look at the various sectors of the economy. I understand there was a complete, power blackout in Zimbabwe yesterday. And, in some areas, power was only restored today. But that's not news because that has become, commonplace in Zimbabwe. Look at South Africa. There are constant blackouts because of, less and less and, a lot of complications in power generation. As these leaders congregate tomorrow, which sectors should they be prioritizing that can bring us, quick employment?
Thank you for that. I would like to add a few comments on this one and also maybe come back to some of the comments that have been made by the previous speaker. I think power is a regional problem that we are experiencing. Of course, some other countries within the regional bloc experience it more severely as compared to other countries. So I think as SADC, it's something that we need to prioritize in as far as this industrialization summit is concerned, because any industry or any industrialization to take place successfully, we need consistent supply of reliable power. So I think power is something that we need to prioritize. Then the second aspect that we also need to look at is water and sanitation within the region. This is not only a regional problem, but it is also an African problem. Clean water and access to clean water is a huge problem in Zimbabwe as well as in Africa. So these are some of the priority areas which I think we need to put in place as the fundamental principles before we can speak of anything else, because everything else that we live in is reliant on power, and water and sanitation is an important aspect in as far as our human existence is concerned. So for any economy, economics teaches us that we need capital, we need labor, and we need the land, which is the resources. So the labor component of it is going to be affected by water and sanitation. If people don't have access to clean water and reliable water, then you also have problems with your labor. If we don't have the land which we can then support with issues like infrastructure as far as power is concerned, it will also then be very difficult to attract the requisite capital. So I think power and water sanitation are the key elements that I would like to see the leaders focus on. Then in as far as coming back to some of the comments that have been made about Africa.com, which is trying to promote stories, positive stories to encourage entrepreneurship to the young people and try to change the mindset of the people from, an employee type of mentality, but also to an entrepreneurial type of mentality. It's very important, but I would like also to believe that is why the SADC Summit on Industrialization and Economic Integration is very important, in the aspect that if there is no framework, you may have a positive mind as an entrepreneur, you may have the aspirations, but if there is no framework that has been put in place for you to be able to thrive, then it comes to nothing. So this is why we pay special attention to these summits, to say the framework is being set, the mind shift is being changed within the political leaders to ensure that we have the enabling environment once people want to take up entrepreneurial activities. For instance, let me give you two examples from the technology side of things. We have a company in Congo, Brazzaville, which is called VMK, which has started manufacturing ICT gadgets within that particular country. It's a local company that is now doing its manufacturing within the country, which is now creating a lot of employment, and they can also start exporting what they are making, which is creating jobs for the youth, who are also then coming up with creating mobile applications for the platforms that this company is also developing. Somebody mentioned call centers operating in India as an example, and we feel Zimbabwe is very much suited to undertake some call center operations. We have the highest literacy rate in Africa. Our English is not tainted by any accent, and we can also then support these operations. And I believe summits like these are some of the areas that they can take a look into and see our key strategic and strengths that we can also utilize. The last example that I will give on the technology side of things, we have a company called Astro Mobile here in Zimbabwe. It's setting up for the first time in Zimbabwe, and I think within the region, a manufacturing plant in Masasa. I think by the end of the year it should be operational, where they will be manufacturing their mobile devices as well as mobile computing devices within the country, and we expect that to create a lot of employment. So the importance of this regional integration then comes into play in the sense that if I'm an entrepreneur in Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe is only 13 million people, and that's a very small market for any entrepreneur who has got a Pan-African view. So expanding into other African countries within the region becomes very critical because we've got a very small population in Zimbabwe, which translates into a very small market. So if I really want to be successful, it means I'll have to export my operation in other African countries. But that's going to be a problem if those countries are not synchronized or they are not well integrated, which then becomes a very important element which we now see in the SADC summit to say people are going to try and push for more integration within the region so that it becomes easy for companies to expand and to work within the region as an entire marketplace.
Okay, tinotenda Tawanda, please do stay on the line. Gentlemen, titore mtereri wedu tatenda Mkoma Donald Makadi.
Ndipo ivanatenda gumbo hapo.
Hello Mkoma Donald, VIP wedu.
Murisezo. Murisezo.
Tribo stereki Mkoma Donald. Tipe ifungwa zenyu.
Alright, benzi Mkoma mtuma mili nechirongwa ichi. Ndoda kuti aruneka inde oda kuti hangu ma head of state SADC uya munongeta msangano wao. Anditika? But ndoda kuti dai vakwanisa kana kuti vagona kusvika muno muZimbabwe dai vakwanisa kutenderera madhorobheni ese ari muno muZimbabwe vachiona macompanies akakolapsa like kuna nakwekwe kuna namacompanies akawanda vana Visco Steels, Masco, Sebo Chemicals, vana Gaika, macompany akawanda asinga operate mamwe mashoma acho ari kuoperate at low capacity. Handitika? Ngavakwanise kuona votsvaka root cause yakakonzeresa kuti chii chakambokonzeresa kuti macompanies iwawayo. Noti nyaya yatinayo muno haisi dambudziko rokuti kwai maindastry kana kuti nyaya politics dzomunoto dzinokonzeresa nyonga yese yatiri kusanga nhamo yese yationa taioneswa nekuda kwepolitics. Hakuzi kuti kwai noti mukati at first zvinhu zvaka zvakanaka isi kuma-90s isi tiri vadiki hedu taiva vadoko by that time, but taiona tasingambozviti nhamo kana kuti chiri chirepo inhamo taingoona sekuti zvinhu zvose muchechetere. Apo izvo yakanga ihuku iri pamusoro pedutu rezivo achitetereza, nawo hapachina chavaatetereza vapedza manje. Ndopatakunyacho kuona kuti hapana chedu. Ngavatsvake root cause maSADC leaders vaone, ende ndofarira kuti vaprotesta vagoona chaizvo kuti vamwe maleaders aona kuti zvinhu zviri munoka zvinokonzerwa noutungamiri. Chero vadzinga havo mapurisa avadzingirira vaprotesta, but at least vagoona pavatoita ipapo kuprotesta kwavaita ikoko zvaonekwa pachena kuti chatinacho idambudziko routungamiri. Harizi dambudziko rokuti ngavagadzire environment iri conducive. Ife hatidi kupuwa mari navanhu. Mukoma Masimba kuchera ndofunga vari kunizvisa zvandotaura nonga vanozviwa. Ndotenderana ndofunga kuti vanotenderana zvandiri zvandotaura. Hatidi kupuwa mari, toda kuzvishandira namaoko edu isi mayuthi. Hatisi kuda kana yazi kupuwa mabhora emaChina aya kuti katanzi youth empowerment votipa mabhora. Hatidi mabhora, toda kuzvishandira nepaenvironment iri conducive. Ndozvatoda.
Aiwa
hatisi kutomboda kana kupuwa mari Mukoma Ntungamiri. Chatoda isi kuzvishandira environment iri conducive. Macompanies ese akavhura like Glovewood, kune Triangle, kune Hippo Valley. Macompanies iwawo dai aishanda. Tisina kana rovha, tisingatisiri marovha mumaraini, tingade tiri hapana munhu angadai asiri pabasa. Vanhu vaitoita vashoma Mukoma. Totaurirana chokwadi. Ngavatsvake root cause. Politics dzemunondo dzinokanganisa industry kana kuti hapana chinosumuka. 51% yayo haisi conducive yekuti chero munhu anoda kusima mari yake ka unongouya achingofuratira. Hapana nyange hapana munhu angambodira mumabagwe mudura rezvikutu. Zvinongokuchena ukadira mubagwe manyu anosvika achingoputiwa stew. Ngavatange vagadzirira ipapo first.
Aiwa, well said, Mkoma Donald. Tinotenda as usual.
Ndaiwa maita basa ndoda musandikata phone ndoda nyazonzwawo maresponde vamwe papo.
Okay, tokusiyai paline.
Mkoma Donald. Mnumzana kuchera uyamuzu Donald yakhuluma lapha.
Lokuthi ube le fire selizwe.
Yebo, qhubeka mnumzana kuchera. Ungathini ngobe kukhulunywa ngabanye
ngiyavumelana naye ukuthi nxa sikhangele umele sibili sikhangele ukuthi kuyini okungayi kwanisa ukuthi i-program yethu e-industrialization iyahambi kahle kuyini into ezinjenge-politics ungami kuhle kwezinto elizweni kungenzakala njalo ukuthi ungenza ukuthi i-program yethu le esiyifunayo e-industrialization ingahambi kahle kodwa ngifuna ukuthi ngikukhulume futhi obekukhulunywe nguTawanda ukuthi nxa singakhayeleza sabona ukuthi amazwe amaningi bayafuna ukuthi bayenze into efana nayo so nxa ukuthi sizafuna ikampani ethengisa amafoni abe-South Africa bazavula eyabo abe-Angola bazavula eyabo imarket yangikhona i-competition iyabe isingayitho lutho okumele sizame ukwenza yikuthi asizameni ukuthi nxa kuyukuthi iZimbabwe siyabona ukuthi i-strength singapha sibakhuthaze ukuthi bazame ukuthi baqinise lapho une-strength yabo ukuthi abe-South Africa nxa kuyukuthi i-strength yabo yi-marketing then they also have the marketing arm. What I'm just saying is that when you look at issues of competition, if everyone starts doing the same thing, this is what is in Harare. A few people started vending and everyone is on a street corner trying to sell the same way as going to South Africa and doing the same thing. So when you look at industrialization, it's also looking at how do you strategically place countries. If Botswana is good in diamonds, let's have our diamond refinery in Botswana so that Botswana can also have employment that side, but whatever else they need, which are not diamonds, they can also then outsource to other countries. That's how I would see integration working. If every of these other countries, even the smallest one, Mauritius, has a diamond cutting and polishing center, it means that no one will buy from each other. You simply try to then fight over the Western or Eastern markets. So we also need to strategically look at what are the country's strengths so that we play to those ones.
Thank you, Mr. Kuchera. Just as we finish our program and wrapping up, we'll come to you, Davison. Just to wrap up the program, as everyone has been saying this evening on this program, the issue of industrialization and moving forward, where does Zimbabwe fit in, and will we have the chance to fit in 20 seconds if possible?
Zimbabwe is a long way to go. As other speakers have been mentioning, both the basic services are not there, electricity generation and also water, but the human resource capacity is there. So what Zimbabwe needs now is the unity of all the SADC countries. So we hope and trust that this gathering will bring these countries together. They come up with an integration blueprint that will encourage everyone in the region and support everyone in the region. And Zimbabwe will also benefit from this and also start industrializing again and open those factories that are lying idle in Harare, Bulawayo, and other cities in the country.
Thank you very, very much. We want to say thank you to our guest this evening, Davison Mudzingwa, CEO of EntrepreneurshipAfrica.com, Masimba Kuchera, independent economist, and also Tawanda Chikosi, who is the CEO of Chikosi Corporation. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. I'm Tatenda Gumbo.